I'm Shannon Ireland, your host of a Healthy Push podcast. I struggled with anxiety, panic disorder, and agoraphobia for 15 years. Everything used to be hard for me. Even just driving 5 minutes from my house used to feel impossible. But now I absolutely live for travel and adventure, and I experience lots of peace and joy. I've not only reclaimed my life, but I've helped hundreds of others to do the same. Here, we stop managing anxiety and instead we create a healthy relationship with it. One where you say goodbye to the anxious thoughts, symptoms, panic attacks, and fears, and you actually live your life. Forget complicated strategies, quick fixes, or the same old hacks you've heard 100 times before. Each week, I'll bring you simple, actionable advice and honest conversations that lead to real, long-term healing. You aren't just an anxious person, my friend. There are reasons why you're struggling with anxiety, and these are things you can fix and heal from. And this is where that journey begins. Welcome. You're right where you're meant to be. Hello, and welcome back to a Healthy Push podcast. So today I want to talk to you about panic attacks, which if you're not new here, you already know this is something that I struggled with deeply for over a decade. I spent a long time, way too long, living with that overwhelming, terrifying feeling that panic could hit me anywhere. And at one point, I was experiencing panic attacks multiple times a day. And I remember some of the worst panic attacks happened to me while I was just doing everyday things, like being at work or driving in my car or being out with friends. And sometimes it even happened at home, the place where you're supposed to feel safest, right? The place where panic doesn't normally show up, but panic would often show up totally uninvited, anywhere I was. And it would really derail me. Like there were times I can remember when the fear felt so intense that I genuinely thought I was dying. And I ended up in the emergency room more than once, twice, a few times, because I genuinely didn't know what else to do. It's not really that I had to go to the emergency room or I needed that sort of care, but if you have experienced panic, you know it feels absolutely terrifying in your body. And you really do convince yourself, I can't handle this and I'm going to lose control and something really bad is going to happen. And these were those times. I think I say only, a handful of times is more than enough to find yourself in the emergency room experiencing this. But I remember experiencing this a handful of times and just really feeling so defeated and frustrated and like there was something incredibly wrong with me. Like there is no way it could just be anxiety. Like, if you've experienced it, you're like, it does not feel like just anxiety. Panic attacks are really terrible. And I'll put it bluntly, like they just suck so much. And it makes your everyday life incredibly hard. That fear that you carry every day is so heavy. And that constant worry, right, about experiencing panic. It's like shitty enough and hard enough to experience panic attacks. But what can almost be harder is that fear of panic and how your entire life can revolve around that fear of panic. So I want to talk to you about 10 things I did to stop experiencing panic attacks because I don't want anyone to struggle like I did. And I don't want anyone to suffer for as long as I did because honestly, it's not necessary. Like I look back at my journey and I just think I had so much help and support. Like I had therapists and I had really good family and really good friends. And there were just so many things that nobody ever told me and just things that I weren't aware of. And I was getting a lot of the quick fixes and the hacks and the, just power through, like face the fear. And I think all of this caused me to feel even more defeated because I was still struggling no matter what I was doing, no matter how much support I had. So I just want to talk to you about what I did to stop experiencing panic attacks because I know how incredibly scary, draining, frustrating, all the things that panic can cause. So let's dive in and talk about these 10 things that help me to stop experiencing panic attacks. And I have to say this, these things did not make them go away overnight, right? But step by step, these things really helped. And these things will help you to begin shifting your experience too. Okay, the first one, I got rid of the goal of doing things without panicking. I cannot tell you how much I had this emphasis on going and doing things and not panicking. Like, of course, it was that fear, like, I don't want to panic, I don't want to panic. But part of it was me thinking and convincing myself, like, I should be able to do things without panicking. I should be able to go places, right? I should be able to get in my car and not experience panic. And I would fight so hard to not experience it because I thought if I experience it, that's bad, right? That means I'm not healing. That means I'm not getting better. Like for so long, I thought the point was to kind of do everything perfectly, like to never feel anxious or panicky during doing the things. But that just added so much pressure. And it was so incredibly unrealistic. Like it didn't even make sense. Panicking, of course, is a part of the journey, especially when you're working to heal and recover, because you're doing a lot of things that are pushing back against your brain and the way that you normally have done things. And so it makes sense that you experience more anxiety and panic. So, what I learned is that healing isn't about not feeling anxious, right? It isn't about fighting anxiety or trying to make it go away. It's a whole lot about acceptance, like giving yourself permission to feel anxious without being so judgy and without being so resistant. And when I stopped aiming for no panic, I actually started to feel a lot more peace. Okay, number 2, I stopped only doing things when I felt, quote, good enough. This one was a big one for me. Like, I used to wait until I didn't feel so anxious or until I felt calm or until I felt like ready enough before I would go and do the things that I knew would probably lead to some anxiety. Like I would convince myself I kind of had to be in the perfect mental state. Like I have to make sure that I can handle it. I have to make sure that I'm going to be okay. But the truth is, progress does not come from perfect conditions at all. It really comes from doing things even when you don't feel ready or calm or at peace, right? It means taking the steps, however small, when you feel anxious or uncomfortable is where that growth happens. So I slowly learned I had to stop waiting and I had to stop manipulating things to be just a certain way to make sure that I was going to be okay and that I wouldn't panic and that nothing bad would happen. And I just had to start kind of regardless how I felt. And I'm not saying, of course, on those days where you're like having the hardest time and like so much anxiety, or you're just having a really bad day, like you got to still go and push and do the things. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I think you've definitely got to check yourself and recognize when you're only doing things when you feel good enough. Okay, the next one, I stopped forcing myself to try to feel calm. Like, this one might sound silly, but I did this for so long. Like, for such a long time, I tried to like make myself feel calm as if it were some switch that I could just turn on. But trying to force calmness actually made me feel worse. And it made me experience a lot of anxiety. And it made me feel like I was failing because I often couldn't feel it. I think this was a big part of using a lot of those coping tools, the techniques that people teach you. It's kind of like you're trying to force yourself to come out of the anxious state and to feel calm, but like you can't force calmness. And this was a really hard lesson for me to learn because I think this was often another goal. Like I walked around like, okay, if I feel anxious, I have to make myself feel calm. I have to make myself relax. I have to breathe. And it's just so silly because it's like our bodies sort of innately, not sort of, they do figure it out on their own without us having to force it. So I really had to learn instead of trying to force the calm to like make the anxiety go away, I had to allow myself to feel and experience whatever I was feeling and experiencing. Like the nausea, the racing heart, the sweaty palms, like feeling like I was going to pass out. I had to actually allow myself to feel all that and not try to force myself to feel calm. Like no quote shoulds, just letting those feelings be without trying to shove them aside. And this definitely was so helpful and I would say freeing for me to not try to calm myself when I was feeling anxious and experiencing that panic. Okay, the next one, number 4, I worked really freaking hard to build self trust. Like, I will die on this hill. Building self trust is such a massive part of recovering from an anxiety disorder. Like, it was a massive game changer for me. Has been for hundreds of my students. Like, this is something that I teach in everything, my coaching and community, my Panic to Peace program, all of my mini courses, because I realized that this was such a big, massive piece that was missing for me for so long. Like, this is another thing that I look back on my journey and I get so frustrated because I'm like, how did nobody ever talk to me about self-trust and what that meant and what that looked like and how I had such a lack of it and just how to cultivate more of it. So, some basics of this really looked like me learning to set goals that felt doable and manageable and not like super overwhelming, and actually following through with those things, like following through with the promises that I kept to myself. It also meant practicing self compassion when things were hard, and it meant facing fears in ways that felt manageable while actually supporting myself through it and not just trying to force and go at fear in a way that felt just more harmful than helpful. When you take small steps to build self trust, like you really can start to see all these little wins that cause you to get more confidence and more of that safety and more of that belief in yourself. It was like with all of these little steps, I was telling myself, yes, you can do this. Yes, you can handle this. Yes, you can actually get better. Yes, you can actually heal. So I worked really hard to build self-trust. And there are so many ways that you can do this. This is the stuff that I teach every single day, and my programs, my classes, all the things, because it is such a big part of recovery. You cannot expect yourself to handle big feelings of anxiety and panic and to do really hard things and to do those exposures without having self-trust. So, yeah, this was a big focus for me and it was something that helped tremendously in experiencing less panic. Okay, the next one, number 5, and is a big one. They all are big, but this one's big. I really had to learn to look inward instead of always looking outward and reaching for things outside of myself. Like, I realized I was relying so much on quick fixes or distractions or techniques when anxiety showed up. Like, I was just often trying to distract myself with anything that would take my mind off of anxiety or panic or potentially experience it, like seeking reassurance or doing different breathing exercises or grounding practices. And of course, I was doing all of this in an effort to, stop myself from feeling anxious or experiencing that panic attack or to prevent these things. But it just put so much emphasis on me looking outside of myself for help and not seeing like I actually could handle the feelings of anxiety. I didn't need all of these things outside of myself, but I wasn't even allowing myself to feel the anxiety in any capacity. I was just like immediate, nope, I can't handle this. This is going to be bad. And I would look outside of myself and it would just cause me to be on this hamster wheel of fear and distrust. That's where the self-trust piece really comes in, right? Because when you're constantly looking outside of yourself and you're looking to make that anxiety and panic go away, you don't have that belief, that safety, that trust that like you can handle the feelings. So I really started to practice pausing and like allowing myself to feel and to be with the anxiety and to be more curious about what was happening rather than trying to push it away and just run from it. Like giving my body space to process the feelings rather than basically numbing or avoiding them. Like this was such a powerful step toward healing for me. And I emphasize this all the time because if you're constantly looking outside of yourself, oh, you are going to continue to experience so many of the big feelings because you're causing yourself to be so disconnected from your mind and from your body, which is incredibly unhelpful when you're struggling with anxiety. Okay, the next one, number 6, I recognized unhelpful thoughts that led to panic. Like, I think many times we're kind of on autopilot when you're struggling with anxiety and panic. You just like have these thoughts come in, and the thoughts I know can trigger so many sensations and symptoms and can really cause you to quickly go down all those rabbit holes and like convince yourself the worst case scenario is going to happen. Sometimes for me, it would start with those thoughts like, you're going to lose all control, that if you have a panic attack, it's never going to end. Or if I was panicking, I would convince myself it's never going to end. Something really bad is going to happen. And for so long, I didn't even recognize that these thought patterns were there. Like, I honestly don't even think I ever slowed down enough to recognize, oh my gosh, like I'm having these thoughts and I'm just taking them and running with them. Like, I am creating stories. I am trying to get out of the thoughts, get out of the feelings, and try to just basically not experience what I was experiencing. And this caused so much anxiety. I had to really learn, okay, we can't keep shoving down our thoughts. We can't keep fighting them because it's obviously backfiring. Instead, I really learned how to just practice noticing them, like becoming aware of the stories. And then little by little, I learned how to gently shift or reframe the thoughts into something a lot more kind and compassionate and more realistic. It wasn't about stopping the thoughts because that's never a part of it. Sometimes people will say, well, Shannon, how did you stop yourself from having anxious thoughts? How did you learn how to control them? And it was none of that. Like, you cannot control or stop yourself from having thoughts, but you can change your response in your relationship to them. And changing my response and my relationship to my thoughts was a massive part of what helped to relieve a lot of the anxiety and panic I was experiencing. Okay, the next one, number 7, and I've kind of touched on this in a few of these, but I felt like I needed to call this one out on its own. I really stopped trying to stop myself from panicking. I know this one might sound a little bit strange, but I really had to learn, okay, Shannon, we cannot really stop ourselves from panicking. Like, if we're going to panic, we're kind of going to panic. Like, if our body is going to go there, it's going to go there. I think this took me a long time to realize fighting panic only causes more panic. Avoiding panic only causes more fear of panic. Avoiding panic only causes more anxiety. Like, it was so bad at so many points in my journey because I would fight it so bad. And when I did, I can clearly look back at these moments and see everything felt even more intense when I did this and out of control. And so this was probably one of the toughest things, and I know is one of the hardest things in general to do. But I really had to slow things down and allow the panic to just happen and to be there without trying to stop it, to push it away, or to control it. And when I really stopped so much resistance, and this wasn't overnight, right? This was not like, and today I woke up and I decided I'm going to stop resisting panic. Like, it took a lot of practice and it took some time, most definitely. But when I really practiced consistently like I'm going to try my best to not resist, the fear started to lose some of its power. Like I became less afraid. I wouldn't say that the fear ever went away because those feelings of panic, they evoke fear. Like that's what it's designed to do. And so I didn't lose the fear completely, but the fear definitely got diminished the more I allowed myself to just say, okay, if I'm going to panic, I'm going to panic. And if it's going to happen, our body is going to figure it out. I truly realized in my journey, there's so much more strength and peace and acceptance rather than in that fighting and struggling. Okay, the next one, number 8, I stopped believing and telling myself, I should say, I stopped telling myself and believing that panic attacks equal failure. I truly, truly used to see myself, if I had a panic attack, I would see it as a personal failure. Like I did something wrong. I wasn't, quote, strong enough. I wasn't doing enough. I was doing the wrong things. I had to find something else to do. I needed to read another book, all the things I'm sure you can relate. But this belief really kept me stuck. And it also created a lot of shame, which when you add shame to the mix, it makes things so hard, so much harder than they already are. So over time, I really had to learn and see panic as just being a part of the journey. It's not defeat. It's not failure. It's not even a setback. It's just part of the process. And sometimes, honestly, panicking just means your mind and body are learning, right? They're relearning, they're doing that unwiring, they're creating newer and healthier pathways. And it means that you're doing some good work. So I learned to recognize this, right? This is not failure. This is actually okay to be expected, and not just okay and to be expected, but it's actually a good sign. Like it's a good sign that I'm allowing myself to feel and that I'm panicking and actually supporting myself through it. So instead of doing that, beating myself up when I did have a panic attack and telling myself that story of like, see, you failed, you're back at square one, like, what's wrong with you? Why can't you just get over this and not panic anymore? I really started to see panic attacks as a sign of healing rather than something bad. Okay, number 9, I showed myself, truly showed myself, it was safe to panic anywhere. And I know that this one maybe sounds crazy because we often think it's not safe to panic in many places and situations. Like it's not safe to panic while driving. It's not safe to panic on the highway. It's not safe to panic on the plane. It's not safe to panic when you're by yourself. It's not safe to panic when you're out in the middle of nowhere. Trust me, I understand. But I really had to show myself I could experience anxiety and panic anywhere and I would be okay. And this definitely, of course, too, was one of the hardest things. But I know I had to show myself that panic wasn't as big, bad, and scary as I always told myself. Like, yes, I definitely had that fear. Yes, it was a terrifying feeling. I hated it. I didn't want to experience it. But whether I was at the grocery store or in traffic or even at home, I really had to allow myself to say, okay, this feeling is really uncomfortable, but it's not dangerous. And I actually had to show myself like I can be with this feeling and I don't have to run. I don't have to escape. I don't have to get out. I don't have to call someone. Like I can actually be with my feelings no matter where I am. And I can tell you, this was one of the most liberating things. I have talked about this probably a bunch, but I am an avid outdoor person. Like I love to hike, I love to bike, I love to ski, I love to do all the things. But when you're struggling with anxiety and panic, one of the scariest places I think can often be when you're far from, quote, safety. And I can tell you there were many times where I was hiking and it was so incredibly hard because it wasn't just like getting in the car and driving to the mountains, which was hard enough, but it was getting on that mountain, knowing I am going to hike miles into the woods. I'm going to be on top of a mountain. I am not going to be able to get that, quote, help, that safety that I might need. But this was one of the things that helped me the most to heal. And it was kind of two-part. It was showing myself you can be in the middle of the mountains, you can not have reception, you can feel that anxiety, and you can work through it and be okay. And that was so massive for me to see. And the second part of this was hiking is such a passion of mine and something that I love. I love nature. I love hiking. I love the payoff you get when you get to the top of a mountain. And so this was the other part. It was going toward my values, continuing to do things that I really loved and enjoyed while showing myself I could experience anxiety and panic in those places and in those situations. And I always tell my students, my clients, when you go toward the things you value and you continue to live your life, that will help you so much to heal. So, yes, showing myself it was safe to panic anywhere was a massive, massive part of allowing panic to actually stop showing up so much. Okay, the last one, number 10. I really worked to support my nervous system in healthy ways. And I really worked to improve my relationship with myself. Like, I truly learned the importance of slowing down and supporting my nervous system through those daily, like, healthy habits, just more water, more movement, more nourishing foods, less caffeine, less of those vices that we can sort of go toward, like the alcohol and those sort of things. And I really learned, like, I had to support my nervous system so that it could actually help me and not work against me. I think many times what I was doing is I was just beating up my body, and your body and your mind are connected. So if you're not taking care of your body, you are going to see it come out in some very awful ways, like a lot of anxious thoughts, right? The fogginess, the lack of clarity, the fatigue, all of it. Like, it really does affect you more than you might be realizing. So I, with this work, realized when I support myself in small, basic ways on a daily basis, it really gives me more capacity to face the hard stuff and to feel the anxiety and to do the things that I want to do. It really, I learned, wasn't about pushing harder, but it was more about gentle care and gentle support. So this is often one that people overlook, and you can't overlook it, because if you're not supporting your body and your mind, it's going to be incredibly hard to make panic go away. I almost say kind of impossible. Okay, so those are the 10 things that I wanted to share with you. And I think, I understand it is so incredibly hard to struggle with panic attacks. Like I said, I spent over a decade, and there were so many moments when I had panic attacks that I truly thought my life is never going to look differently. Like, I am never going to just be able to get in my car and not think about it. I'm never going to be able to do the things I want to do and not worry about panicking. But I have been recovered for years now, and I go and I do, and I don't have any of those thoughts that I used to have, and I don't worry about panicking. I don't have panic attacks. So, like, I really truly understand if you're like, I don't believe you, Shannon. Trust me, I got it. I felt the same way. But you really can find relief, and you can find long-term healing from panic. This is not something that you need to continue to carry, especially not for years. So if you're like, this has been helpful, but I want some more, like, I really want to encourage you to check out my mini course on overcoming panic attacks. Like, in it, I will teach you how to respond to anxiety, how to respond to the symptoms without spiraling into that panic. And it's everything that I teach, it's no fluff. Like, I'm straightforward, I'm to the point. Like, you will get all the practical tools and the shifts you need to stop coping and to actually start healing and finally feeling safe in your body again. So if you're stuck in that cycle of symptoms and panic, or you're not panicking and you're just really scared to panic, and it's causing you to restrict and limit, and like life just doesn't look how you want it to, and you just want to be able to breathe again, like, I really encourage you to check out this class. Like, I don't want you to continue living at war with your body and mind. You can build real peace and trust and freedom that last. And this class, like I said, it's no fluff. There are, I think, 10 lessons total. There's also a workbook, because I'm such a practical, like, I want to be able to do the things and like turn the lessons into actionable steps. So there's also a workbook, but I will put the link to the class in the show notes for you. And I hope that if you are struggling with panic, that you really do take this class because it will help you incredibly. All my classes, my programs, everything I teach is what I lived, what I experienced, and what I've helped hundreds of people recover from. Okay, until next time, keep taking healthy action. I hope you loved this episode of A Healthy Push. If you have, I'd be so grateful if you could leave me a rating and review wherever you're listening to this podcast. This helps people to find the show and get the support they need. And if you know someone who could use a little push, be sure to share this episode with them. And for even more support, head over to ahealthypush.com for show notes and loads of tips, tools, and inspiration to help you on your recovery journey. I'll see you next week.